Today's study hall is coming to you from a giant chimichanga. Because Deadpool. Hey gang, welcome back to another session of Max Scoville's Study Hall, and I am your host and professor, Max Scoville, super genius. Here in Study Hall, I take a particular video game that people are talking about and recommend a pile of other pop culture media that might go well with that particular title. Today's video game is the first video game devoted entirely to the wacky Marvel Comics fan favorite anti-hero, Deadpool. Deadpool's appeal isn't too hard to figure out. He's a ninja with machine guns and a healing factor who cracks a lot of jokes and isn't afraid to break the fourth wall. Given that he's a mercenary who kills people for money, his status as a traditional superhero is kind of subject to debate, but there's no denying that his moral ambiguity allows for some interesting character developments. And it also helps that he's batshit insane too. Deadpool's always been my favorite. I collected all his comics and toys and trading cards since I was like 7 years old, and it was pretty easy back then because he was still kind of a D-list character. In the last decade, though, Deadpool's become the fan favorite, and it's become really hard to keep track of all the appearances he's making, appearing simultaneously in several different comics a month, which is the same problem that Wolverine had in the 90s. So anyway, whether the upcoming Deadpool video game has got you curious about checking out Deadpool's other appearances, or you're also a longtime Deadpool fan and you're only watching this to point out in the comments what I forgot to mention, this is the episode for you. Let's start with the obvious, comics. A great place to start with Deadpool's comic book appearances is Deadpool Classic Volume 1. It's a trade paperback that conveniently collects his very first appearance in New Mutants number 98. The rest of the Deadpool Classic volumes collect his ongoing solo series, most of which was written by Joe Kelly, with some other writers jumping in later on. The final two volumes are going to be released later this year, and while this is generally considered the definitive Deadpool run, it's pretty all over the place, and parts of it have aged better than others. However, there are definitely some amazing moments. Issue 37 has Deadpool getting his hands on the hammer of Thor and using his newfound Asgardian powers to play baseball and order a bunch of gorditas? Or how about in issue 27 when Deadpool Shoryuken's Kitty Pryde for reasons I've kind of forgotten about? If you want gritty, dark stuff, there's a lot of that too. My problem with the run is it's kind of a roller coaster. My personal go-to recommendation for newcomers to Deadpool is the Cable and Deadpool series, which is basically a buddy cop comedy, but with superheroes. Deadpool's the wacky, crazy one, and Cable's the serious hard-ass who gets stuck with him. If you don't know your way around the Marvel Universe, you might have to Google one or two things, but for the most part, Cable and Deadpool manages to stay pretty consistently fun and kind of on track and self-contained, which is sort of a rarity in Marvel Comics. The full run is 8 volumes, all of which are pretty easy to track down for a reasonable price. Following Cable and Deadpool, another solo Deadpool series started up with Daniel Way writing, who also penned the new video game. Way's approach to Deadpool has been pretty divisive among fans, with some readers genuinely hating what he did with the character. I've only read the first couple story arcs, and I thought they were pretty fun, but apparently it gets kind of so-so later on. Currently, probably the hottest Deadpool title is the Marvel Now series, which launched last year and is being written by comedians Jerry Dugan and Brian Posehn, with art by Tony Moore. I haven't gotten around to reading it, but Adam Sessler says that Jerry Dugan's a cool guy, and Brian Posehn and I went to the same high school, go Dragons, and Tony Moore did art for the first 6 issues of Walking Dead, so if nothing else, it's nice to look at. The first story arc has Deadpool killing off reanimated zombie versions of the United States presidents, which seems about the right level of absurdity for his character. Now, if you hate comic books and you're still watching this show for some bizarre reason, then maybe you'd prefer some cartoon recommendations. A few years ago, Marvel put out a direct-to-video cartoon movie about the Incredible Hulk getting in fights with various other characters, rather obviously titled Hulk Versus. One segment of this loosely retells Wolverine's first appearance and subsequent showdown with the Incredible Hulk in issue 181, but with the welcome addition of Deadpool and a couple of other Weapon X dudes. And as of shooting this episode, Hulk Versus is currently streaming on Netflix, at least in the US. If you're a fan of Deadpool's goofy humor, a couple of other cartoons I have to recommend are the Tick animated series and Freakazoid, both of which I adored as a kid and which hold up really well today. Between the Tick's slapstick superpower of nigh invulnerability and Freakazoid's fourth wall breaking, pop culture heavy sense of humor, these are two shows that should sit well with any fans of Deadpool. Next, let's talk about movies. Don't watch X-Men Origins Wolverine. If you've seen it, pretend you didn't. That movie messes up a lot of stuff, but the degree to which it screws up Deadpool's character is just baffling. I think the only thing that movie did right was casting Ryan Reynolds, who's talked about wanting to play Deadpool for ages. An R-rated Deadpool movie project has been in development hell for a few years now, and last I heard there was a script floating around by the guys who wrote Zombieland, and a visual effects guy named Tim Miller was the most recent director attached to the project, but I wouldn't hold your breath for that one. If you desperately need to see a movie with Deadpool in it sometime soon, then you might be interested in Wolverine XXX. The Axel Braun parody. Yes, a porno movie. I went there. Axel Braun's an adult filmmaker who's cornered the market on adult films unofficially adapted from superhero comic books, and while he could settle for putting some porn stars in bad Halloween costumes and making them bang out, his XXX parodies show a surprising amount of respect for the source material. The costumes for his Batman porno were actually done by the same costume designer who did them for the 1960s Adam West TV show, and his take on Wonder Woman was widely declared to be classier and higher quality than the official and thankfully canceled TV show. His latest subject is Wolverine, and as far as Marvel Universe lore goes, doesn't look like he's cutting any corners. In addition to Deadpool, other characters showing up include Sabretooth, Lady Deathstrike, both of whom look more faithful to the comics than their officially licensed Hollywood counterparts. And in the trailer, Domino shows up and name drops Omega Red and Madripoor in the same sentence, which is way deeper into Marvel lore than Hollywood seems willing to go. Of course, Hollywood's movies don't really revolve around characters having sex with each other, so I guess you gotta make some compromises. In any case, Wolverine XXX, the Axel Braun parody, is coming out on DVD July 26th, so if you're of legal age and you like watching videos of naked people and you like Marvel superheroes, I guess there's worse things you could do with your free time. Anyway, there's about a million other Deadpool appearances I glossed over. You guys should share your favorites in the comments, and if you have any suggestions for me for another episode of Study Hall, by all means, I do take requests. Next week, I'm not even sure what we're going to be talking about because we're recording this before E3, and hopefully I'll have a whole bunch of new games to talk about when I go and see them next week. But if nothing else, we'll do an episode about Duke Nukem Forever. How's that sound? Until next time, get out there and support your local comic shop. I'm Max Scoville. Have a good one. Class dismissed.